The Thing on the Mountain. At 4,296 feet, Ben Macdui in the Scottish Cairngorms falls just short of being Britain's highest mountain. But if it missed one record, Ben Macdui certainly holds another, for it is Britain's only haunted mountain. The first report of anything amiss came not much more than 100 years ago, 1891 to be exact. In that year, a Dr. Norman Colley, professor of organic chemistry from New Zealand, was on a climbing holiday in Scotland. He successfully scaled Ben Macdui and examined the cairn on its summit. While he was there, a mist came down. Worried that it might turn into a fog, he started back down again, but he'd only gone a short distance when he became aware of a sound behind him. He glanced around. He could see nothing in the mist, and so he walked on. The sound came again. A sort of crunch noise, like footsteps on rough ground. The professor became thoroughly worried. He was beginning to wonder whether these were human footsteps, for he'd noticed something very peculiar. Whatever was walking in the mist took only one step for every 3 or 4 that he did. To the professor, that suggested the thing had a giant stride, 3 or 4 times the length of his own. Professor Colley readily admitted he panicked. "I was seized with a terror," he said afterwards. I took to my heels and staggered blindly among the boulders for 4 or 5 miles, nearly down to Rothermurky's forest. A local paper got hold of the story and headlined Dr. Colley's account, "A Professor's Panic." Other papers took it up, and several publications were skeptical. They thought the experience might have been brought on by nerves, or could be put down to the sound of wind whistling through the rocks. They may have been right, except for the fact that Professor Colley was not the only one to experience something very peculiar on Ben Macdui. Dr. A.M. Kellis, a well-known mountaineer, found himself facing something even more terrifying. Dr. Kellis and his brother Henry were on the mountain late one afternoon chipping for crystals. They were well below the cairn, working on a fold of the hill, when something made the doctor look up. His eyes widened, and he called at once to his brother, and together they saw a sight that was absolutely unbelievable. A giant figure striding down from the cairn towards them. They watched as it passed out of sight in a dip. They waited a moment for it to reappear, then, like Professor Colley, panic set in, and they began to make their way hurriedly back down the mountain. But when they glanced around, they saw that the figure was following them. They actually had to run to escape from it. All this happened years after Professor Colley's experience, and by 1945, evidence for the ghost was still mounting. On a May day of that year, a mountaineer called Peter Densham reached the summit around noon. The morning had been fine and clear, but as he sat down to eat his lunch, a sudden fog came down. Mr. Densham found himself unable to see more than a yard or 2 in any direction. As an experienced climber, he was not too worried. Mists do come down quickly in the Cairngorms, often lifting again just as quickly. He decided he had only to sit it out, and so he went back to his lunch. Then the noises started. At first, he thought he might be imagining them, or maybe they were caused by rocks contracting in the sudden chill. He finished his meal and was struck by a feeling that there was someone quite close to him, hidden by the fog. Now, this feeling often strikes climbers on lonely mountain slopes, and so he ignored it. Then, to his horror, he heard a crunch sound approaching from the direction of the cairn. Mr. Densham was a brave man. He held his ground until the sound was only feet away before he panicked and fled through the fog with the thing hard on his heels. He emerged from the mist eventually, but only stopped running when he was well clear of the mountain and safe on the other side of the loch at its foot. So, just what is the thing on the mountain? Maybe one day, somebody, perhaps even you, will be brave enough to stand your ground and find out. Maybe